Aside from the world falling apart, Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, brother. I'm doing good. Wow, what a difference the world has. What a difference of a world we're in since we were on the Jericho cruise.
Yeah, when people talk about life before COVID, I have the distinction of going, the last concert I went to before COVID was you as part of Danger Danger. And then two before that was seeing Rubik's Cube like 3 times on the Jericho cruise.
I
So
know, right?
somehow I go from never seeing you to live to too much right before COVID.
Wow.
I know Rubik's Cube did a broadcast the other day, but what was the last gig you played before COVID?
We did, I believe it was March 13th. What was that? Saturday, right before everything went, but it was either the 13th or the 14th. We played a private party in New York City at the Cutting Room. And it was like, I could tell, looking back on it, seeing my friends, my buddy who owns the Cutting Room, seeing his face, I knew shit was bad. And then the next day, it was like, boom, everything's done.
Yeah, well, on a much brighter note, new music from Tokyo Motor Fist, which is probably the most rock and roll name imaginable. Who came up with the name? I don't think anyone's answered that one before.
Well, I mean, who do you think came up with the name, Darren? Me. I'm the name king. Trickster, throwing rocks, soaked, 40-foot Ringo. Come on, you can't forget that gem. I'm like, forget that computer program band name generator. Anybody out there who wants a cool name for their band, send me an email. Only $1,000. Don't worry.
Only $1,000? Not so bad.
Yeah. The name Tokyo Motor Fist. I get asked that question a lot. So here's the truth in it. I'm one that's big for rock and roll names. So Trickster.
Right.
You got 40-foot Ringo, which is my great band from the early 90s, PJ and I and Maz and Brian Gabriel. You got Throwing Rocks, Soaked, Stereo Fallout, Sugar Belly, my cover band from back in the 90s. I'm known for these great names. And so, I had to continue the tradition, right? And so it was really simple, man, just coming up with names. I have a notebook and in my computer, I'm always, anytime I hear something, my daughter goes nuts because I always go to her, I see things. That's a great album cover. Or I go, that's a great name for a band. Or that's a great name for a song. So here it goes. Here's the story. So I had to come up with a name when Frontiers wanted Ted and I to join forces with Greg and Chuck Berge for what is now Tokyo Motor Fist. What is the name going to be? So I'm like thinking, I'm trying to combine all the things in my life that I think will sound cool. So Tokyo, Japan is one of my favorite places in the world to go to play. I've been fortunate enough to tour there twice, and it's just a magical place. So Tokyo, that was cool. Anything with Tokyo in it to me sounds cool. Yeah. Tokyo Tapes, Tune In Tokyo.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was, I got to give a shout out to my, our old dear friend Lemmy, who's up in heaven. Motorhead, pretty much the coolest name in rock and roll and heavy metal ever. You don't really get much better than Motorhead. Gene Simmons even admitted that to me. I was at a Kiss concert a couple years ago, and I'm wearing a Motorhead shirt, and he goes, Steve, I got to buy that trademark. I want to have Motorhead. Everybody wears Motorhead shirts. They never sold a lot of records, but they've sold 50 million shirts. And I go, well, you work on that, Gene. I'm sure if you go to the Rainbow, Lemmy will be sitting at the bar. You can talk to him about it. So it was easy. Motorhead, Tokyo. Let's put motor in it. What's cooler than motors, motorcycles? There's always something like that. Back in the Trickster day, we were big motorcycle guys, Harleys and dirt bikes. So Tokyo Motor. And then, what's going to give it that rock and roll thing? The fist, Tokyo Motor Fist. And I wrote it down, and I was like, I usually laugh at everything, and I'm like, man, this is fucking cool. It's weird as hell because, people go, what is that? Some weird sexual thing, a Tokyo Motor Fist. They come up with all different, kind of connotations and, their idea of what it is. And there's a lot of dirty people out there who think terrible thoughts. So clean up your minds. It's not that deep. This is rock and roll. It's fun. And that's what it is, Tokyo Motor Fist. I gave it to the guys, and I said, here's the name of the band. Everybody's like, that's kind of cool. I like it. Sent it over to the Frontiers, and they loved it. So I sent it over to the art director, the guy who did the art for the first record, and I told him, this is kind of what I want. I kind of want the name and the engine, and he did the perfect logo, you know, and it was just, it's a no-brainer, man, and it seems to resonate with everybody around the world. It's just a kooky rock and roll name, and it goes perfect with our wacky sense of humor, and I think it goes great with our music, because our music is very powerful. Of course, it reaches the worldwide. Everybody loves melodic hard rock like we do, and you know, and it's definitely a conversation piece. So there you have it.
Before I ask you about Lions, is it a coincidence that Chris Jericho's wrestling group or stable was almost called Fist instead of the Inner Circle?
You'd have to ask Chris about that. I know nothing about that. You know, look, man, you know, I'm definitely a very influential person, Darren. So,
right.
you know, I'd go with that. I'd go. So yeah, Chris, you stole that from me.
Fist, you heard it first.
Yeah, you know, Chris is one of my dear friends. I love him like a brother. I love him like a gig pig.
I can't top that. Okay, back to Lions here. How long did you actually spend writing it?
I'm going to say I started writing the record right at the beginning of 2019. You know, as usual, you know, winter time is kind of the time when we all hibernate. So that's a great time to make records. I'm home a lot. I'm always in my studio here. As you can see, I got analog tape machines, cassette tape machines. I'm always working. So I never stop. But a funny story about how the record started, and this ties into PJ and Eric Martin and, you know, Chris Jericho, of course, and Joey Casada, is that we were going to do a record, PJ and I, we were going to do a record with the Eric Martin thing that we had, the Eric Martin and the Tricksters. And so, you know, we were kind of like, PJ is like, come on, you got to come up with some ideas. And the first thing I came up with was the song Youngblood, which originally I wrote it for Eric in this thing we were going to do together. You know, Frontiers was interested, but for some reason Eric didn't want it. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to finish the song, because I had finished the whole song pretty much the way you hear it on the Tokyo Motor Fist record. Right. Is the original version that like I sent to Eric, and all it had was young, you know, the chorus, the Youngblood part. But I finished it off. I sent that, you know, that I don't make demos. I pretty much make a finished mix of the song with me playing everything and singing everything. And I sent it to Ted, and Ted basically jumped through the phone and he said, this is the greatest thing that I've ever heard. This is the greatest song. And I'm like, boom, we got a new Tokyo Motor Fist record, and we were off to the races from that point on. So January of 2019, and that's when we started. And I'm going to say I pretty much wrote the whole record in 2 months. And we were recording, I think, by March or April of 2019.
People who follow rock, the great musical genre of rock, too much rock for one hand, know that Frontiers is kind of synonymous with classic rock artists and also all-star kind of projects. Yes. And given that you guys all have real deal credits, do you like being thought of as an all-star band? I
prefer to be called Supergroup. That's really, you know, I mean, All-Star, I've been an All-Star for 30 plus years, and we know that already, but
semantics.
Come on, kids, wink and a smile. I don't want to see the comments. Who does Steve think he is? Blah, blah, blah.
No, I would always go to bat to say that Steve Brown is a star, because you never stopped working. You've worked with so many high-profile artists. You've been on the road with the high-profile artists. A-list Rolodex, I would argue, as well. So by proxy, if you're not the star, you hang out with the stars. So that kind of makes you like on The Simpsons, a stonecutter, but with stars.
Whatever the fuck that means, I'll take it, Darren. It's very cool. Again, like I always say, I'm blessed. I'm one of the luckiest guys in the world. You know, we all know that. But so where are we going with this? I lost my train of thought at that.
Well,
Supergroup. So
yes.
Getting back to the Supergroup. Yeah, we're a supergroup. It's not, you know, between Ted Poley and his reputation, you got the great Chuck Berge, who's a legend of, you know, way more than I am. I mean, that guy's resume is like, you know, I played on the first half of the first Bon Jovi record, played with Hall & Oates, played with Blackmore and Rainbow. You know, we've been in Billy Joel's band for the last 15 years, played with Paul McCartney on stage, all the people he's jammed with, you know, it's pretty impressive. And then Greg Smith, of course, on bass guitar, Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
There's a great New York band, Americade, which most people don't know that he was actually in for a little while. It was a big influence on me as a kid. And, you know, Alice Cooper, Ted Nugent, Rainbow as well. You know, we have the Rainbow connection, a big Rainbow connection.
Rainbow connection.
Which, you know, Chuck and Greg both were in a version of Rainbow together. And I played with Joe Lynn Turner for a couple years. And so it's just, you know, it's an awesome thing. And the cool thing about Tokyo Motor Fest, much different than most of these so-called super groups, projects, if you will. Tokyo Motor Fest is a real band. You know, first off, we played multiple shows, not just one show or two shows. We played like 7 or 8. So that makes us like, you know, in supergroup years, when a supergroup does more than 2 shows, that's like a 10-year lifetime. Yeah. So we're like, you know, we're already a decade old as far as supergroup age. It's kind of like cat years or animal years. Yeah. And or I like to say fist years.
Oh, fist years. Okay.
But we're again, we're a real band. You know, of course, we make the records here at my house. You know, we do some remote recording, but, you know, Ted was here doing his vocals. And on the last record, Chuck did his drums in my laundry room over there. But this year, he decided to do it at his own place. And it works out great. We just love each other. And it comes through on the music. And most of all, it comes through when you see a Tokyo Motor Fest show. You see the chemistry that we have, the love for each other. I mean, we're like brothers, you know, brothers that fight like cats and dogs, but we're like brothers.
Well, one of the difficult things about interviewing you in particular is you never know how many projects that Steve Brown has simultaneously going on. If I'm talking to, say, Ted Nugent, it's like, okay, well, he's got a new album, a new tour, but there's no real side project. Maybe Damn Yankees every 15 years does something.
Still waiting on that.
Still waiting on that, like many people. But in your case, is there Trickster? Is there Tokyo Motor Fest? Is he playing with Dennis DeYoung? Is he playing with Eric Martin? Who is he playing with? Is there other stuff going on, or at least in talks? And you don't have to reveal if it's secrets right now.
Well, I mean, you forgot Def Leppard, of course, you know, and I'm going on 8 years now being in the bullpen with them. You know, I'm always on call with Def Leppard. As we know, I'm there within, you know, hours notice. You know, my first trip with them in 2013, I got a call at 5 o'clock in the afternoon that you're going to be on a plane at 9 o'clock out of JFK to fly to France. You know what I mean? And that's the way it is with Def Leppard. So I'm always with them. We were, you know, of course, we all know what happened there. We were slated for, you know, the stadium tour with Motley Crue, Joan Jett, and Poison this summer, and that's postponed until next year. So that's out of the equation. But I'm always, you know, the phone is always ringing. And again, you know, there's lots of bands that I haven't even been mentioned that I've gotten calls about, bands that I've turned down, and other bands that I can't mention, big bands that have called me to fill in for them. And that's sort of over the last 7 years since Def Leppard, that's been sort of my thing. You know, I did it with Dennis DeYoung. And again, there are numerous bands who've needed me that it just hasn't worked out yet. But that's always it. And again, here I am in my studio. So pandemic, you're looking at analog tape machines. I've been transferring and preserving the Trickster history, my own personal musical history, transferring analog tapes to digital, transferring my old, here's Trickster Japan Tour, 1993, getting all this stuff digitized because, you know, as you know, we're celebrating the 30th anniversary of the debut Trickster album right now. And that's fucking scary in itself because it makes me feel so old right now.
Vintage.
30 years, man. Wow. And I tell my daughter, I'm only 25 years old. Well, how can that be if you have a 30-year-old album? I go, I don't know. But so there's always something going on. Look, you know, I make no bones about it. This is what I do with my life. This is what I love. I love being in the studio. I love, you know, Mutt Lange is probably one of my biggest influences in music. Mutt Lange, Eddie Van Halen, you know, Bon Jovi, Def Leppard. You know, that's what I do. I love being in the studio, writing songs, doing what I do, as much as I love to perform live. So being that I haven't played a gig in 3 months, you know, my attitude was, instead of sitting around eating ice cream and getting fat like a lot of people, it was like, man, I'm going to go to work here. So I've been writing songs. I wrote some great, you know, I'm always writing for other people. So I'm always working, and that's the great thing. And the cool thing about it is, at this point in my life, I'm blessed enough, had enough success to where money doesn't dictate what I do. I do what I want because I can, and that's the best part. That's why I say, you wouldn't believe the amount of things I say no to, and it's a beautiful thing that I'm able to do whatever I want. If I want to wake up and I say, all right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to transfer a bunch of my old Throwing Rocks D88 tapes, right here and spend a day doing that. I can do that. I can do whatever the fuck I want musically. And that's that's a blessing. And it's like, man, I won the game in a matter of speaking.
Well, one question about that, and then I want to take this to DLR territory. And
Yeah.
that question is, you started off with the big record deal. And most people who are not in the music business, who are just fans, they kind of think that the end of the rainbow is getting the record deal, not realizing that's kind of the beginning of the rainbow, and that's when the work really, really starts. And then inevitably, just about every band gets dropped or breaks up and then kind of figures out, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? And you have made lemons into lemonade, to say the very least, because you have all these projects and gigs and you're getting calls and work. But was there almost a point when music almost went to being a part-time hobby evening thing and not your future?
Never. It was never a moment, never since I was 8 years old when I started playing guitar, Darren. This is all I've ever really wanted to do. I mean, I grew up in a big athletic family. My dad was a semi-pro baseball player. My brother was an all-century baseball and football player. I was a great athlete as a kid, man. No, but I realized very early on, first, that I'm not going to be 6'2" and 215 pounds. And music took over everything in my life, and I tell people all the time, 1978, Kiss Rock and Roll Over and Van Halen 1. Those two records completely changed the course of my life, and it's been a course that I've been on. I make the joke all the time. I sold my soul to rock and roll in 1978 and never looked back, and I'm cool with it. I'm still running with the devil, if you know what I mean.
For sure. Now, there is that video of you hopping on stage at Madison Square Garden during the 5150 tour and all that.
No, that was OU 812.
The OU 812 tour. My apologies. Yes. Now, one question that does not get answered in all the comments to that, did you get roughed up after you got pulled off stage?
Not at all. Not at all. And that was part of the reason why I did it, because here's the funny thing. If you watch the video of that full show, Gus, our drummer in Trickster, Gus, when he was skinny, he jumped up on stage before. We had front row tickets. Our old managers in Trickster, the one guy was a ticket scalper, ticket broker. So he would always get us the best tickets for the show. So Van Halen, of course, my favorite band. Steve, here's an early Christmas present. You're going to go to Van Halen, stand in the front row. And we did. And we were literally like standing on the stage, like my foot was on the railing, and we were all. And then during one of the songs, Gus jumps up and he runs right over Alex's kit. And he's banging on the drums, and we're cracking up like, oh my God. He gets taken off by Zeke, who is Eddie's tech. He comes running up, grabs him. And next thing you know, like 2 minutes later, Gus is right back with us. We're like, oh my God, you didn't get the shit beat out of you? He's like, no, man, they just brought me out here. And that was it. And so that got my wheels turning. And I'm like, Eddie was literally, 4 feet away from me at times. And I'm like, this is it. It's now or never. Listen, man, Van Halen wrote the song, Might As Well Jump. So I took the initiative. I said, there's not going to be a moment in my life that I'm never get like this again, not knowing what was going to happen to me years later, becoming friends with Eddie and whatnot. But, for that moment, it was just there, and I waited, and it was at the end of rock and roll, and I saw a moment, and I just said, fuck it. My buddy Jim DeSalvo, one of my best friends who's not with us any longer, he pushed me. PJ was there. They pushed me up. People fell back. And I got up there, I ran right up to Eddie. I'm like, let me play your guitar. And he you saw the video. He was cool. He let me in, and I started doing one of his licks and watching Sammy and Mike come over. I forgot about that whole part. And then Sammy goes, that's a bad mofo, because he knew I could play. Like, he could hear it. I wasn't just some idiot. He saw what I was playing. I was playing real licks. And after the show, my buddy Jim, he kept saying that. He goes, Sammy said, you're one bad mofo. And he was like, that was the greatest thing. And what was funny about that, I had been searching high and low forever for a picture of that or the video. The guy who posted the video years ago, he didn't post the full show. So it wasn't until we did this Izzy Presley thing that, what's his name, the bass player for the Atomic Punks, we started talking about it, and he was like, he messaged in, dude, it's on YouTube, and so I was like, I couldn't believe it. There it is. There it is, proof to everybody who didn't believe it, and then 3 years later, I'm sitting in the dressing room with Sammy and Eddie at the Meadowlands Arena on the Fuck Tour, the 91. And Eddie goes, this is the kid who jumped up on stage at the Garden, on the OU 812 tour that played. Because by that time, Trickster had sold 1 million records or whatnot. And everybody, Eddie and I were friends already. And so he told the story to Sammy. And he's like, oh, shit, I remember Zeke telling this story. And it's just, finally it's documented, and I couldn't be happier, man. It's just one of those magical nights. I still have the ticket stub from the show, too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, were you always a Dave guy and a Sammy guy? Because you just said Van Halen's a favorite band, if not the favorite band.
Yeah, Van Halen is, Kiss Van Halen, Def Leppard, of course, they're everything. But Eddie Van Halen is the reason why I do this, why I still do this, why I'm here. And, one of my biggest supporters, everybody knows that. And
I see the EVH strap on the head there too. Yeah.
Yeah. That's my little, when I'm recording, I need to use that sometimes. But, Van Halen has always been the band. Kiss was my first introduction, my first concert in 1979, Kiss. But Van Halen was the band when I saw them in 1982 on the Diver Down tour. That was the moment that I was like, this is the kind of band that I want. Kiss was so unattainable. When I saw Van Halen, I was like, this is what I want to do, because it was like a party. It was a rock show. The music, Edwards musical, his playing, the volume, David Lee Roth, Michael Anthony, Alex. It was just everything that I wanted a band to be. And that's when I started Trickster in 1983. It was basically to be a mini Van Halen, and so. Yeah, that was the be-all, end-all. But the Sam and Dave thing, I mean, look, of course the early Van Halen is near and dear to me, but I love, the Sammy era. I love 5150. I love it all. I really can't, and for me, part of the Sammy era is very important, because that's when I met Edward for the first time and became friends with all those guys, man. I, go to Eddie's house and fucking go to rehearsals. So I was friends with all of them. Sammy was great to me. Michael, Alex, it was crazy. As a little kid, and again, people ask me this all the time. Did you ever think that you'd be playing with Def Leppard? Did you ever think that you'd tour with Kiss? Did you ever think that you'd hang out with Eddie Van Halen? When I was 8 years old, when I was 12 years old, probably never in a million years would I dream of it. But as life goes on, that's what it is. You work yourself. I worked my ass off and still work my ass off.
Still do.
For these opportunities. And these guys aren't, as much as they're my idols and stuff, they're my friends. When I see Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley backstage, they don't treat me like a fan, and I don't treat them like they're my friends. I'm friends with these guys. Eddie Van Halen, we do, it's the same thing. And, Phil Collins is like family to me, as the Def Leppard guys are. So, but as a little kid, wow, when I held up the Pyromania record, could I ever have imagined that I'd be on stage playing Photograph with them? I mean, it's mind blowing. It really is. And again, it goes back to what I said before. You're all looking at one of the luckiest guys in the world, But it wasn't without 20,000 hours of work and putting in the work and being legitimate, being the real deal. And that's certainly what I am.
And are you a fan of Sonrisa Salvaje?
What is that?
That's Timmons Smile, recorded in Spanish by DL.
You know what, man? Not so much. I mean, I don't have it. I do love Timmons Smile. It's Skyscraper's actually right over there. But no, I've heard it, But yeah, I'm not really a big fan of that. And nothing against. I love Spanish food. I love Spanish people. I love everybody. So, I know we're in very sensitive times right now. So no disrespect to the Latino community. I wasn't good in Spanish. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro. That's as far as I got. But, I love me some paella. And, but yeah, no, man, I'm just a huge fan of the Timmons Smile record. I mean, again, Eat 'Em and Smile, 5150. I love both those records equally, and so there's all love there. I love all things Van Halen, and I'm still, look, man, Dave has been rough over the last couple of years and kind of how his ship has kind of sunk a little bit, seeing that he's now an opening act for Van Halen. I mean, for Kiss.
Yes, yeah.
And, but I got to give him credit, man. Dave is just one of these guys who just, this is what he does. And I think Dave, and I've opened for Dave with 40 Foot Ringo. We did some shows with him. And the guy, this is what he does. And I don't think he gives a shit. I don't think he has anything to prove to anybody. And we can all rip on him. Look, man, we all know he doesn't sing like he used to. He never really was the greatest singer live. And even in the studio, all those vocal lines that he did were fed to him pretty much by Ted Templeman anyway. So it is what it is. But to me, back in the 80s, David Lee Roth was the greatest frontman, and anybody who was there and saw him, he was the greatest there ever was at that for that short period of time.
Well, then 2 quick questions, and then you're a free man, or at least you're doing more press after this.
Oh, I'm a free man. Okay.
First one, have you ever seen the Dave concert live from Finland, 99? It's an MTV thing on YouTube.
Yeah, with Bart, the late Bart Walsh playing guitar, and Bart was a cool guy, so God rest his soul. But yes, I did.
And top notch, him in top singing form, I must say. A lot of people get on him that he was never the greatest singer live, but he totally had it going in the late 90s.
Yeah, well, I think it was out of necessity, and I think Dave, he gets a lot of slack on this last run that he was doing, because I got to see him when they played in Allentown right at the beginning of February. Greg Smith and I went out to the show, and I thought you could tell he's putting in a lot of work to really try to do his best. And what can I say? I mean, look, man. Dave, there's a great story. It's been documented, but when we were recording the first Trickster record, the first week we got out to California, we were at this famous club, Bordello, and they had a big Thursday night thing where everybody was hanging, and we were there. And man, I remember it like yesterday. We're standing there, and somebody knocks, one of the guys said to me, "Dude, there's David Lee Roth." And there he was, man, the fucking guy that we all in Trickster, I mean, Van Halen was what we modeled ourselves after. There he was. He was in all leather, and we went up to him and introduced ourselves. He was so fucking nice to us. I know also he gets a bad rap, but he was so nice. We told him we just got a record deal. We're out here making our first record. And I told him, I said, it's because of you and Ed that we're here, and that we got this opportunity. And he just said to me, he shook my hand. He said, "Well, good luck to you, Steve." And I'll never forget that, man. And so whatever anybody wants to say, and hey, I'm guilty of it too, man. Look, I get a little tired of seeing a lot of these old rock stars, especially singers who can't measure up, and they're fucking lazy, and they don't do vocal exercises. Guys don't warm up. There's no excuse, man, especially when you got McCartney out there at 78 years old, still kicking ass. Yeah. Mick Jagger. I mean, did you hear the new Stones fucking song? It's awesome.
Great song, great video.
They're fucking 78 years old, and they're still killing it. So when I hear guys in their 60s that are complaining about their voice, shut the fuck up. Get out there, work harder, man. Like Phil Collins told me, man, and Def Leppard was a great, motivator for me, especially over the last couple of years, getting in shape, being in the best shape of my life. I'm going to be 50 in 2 weeks, man, and I'm in better shape now than I was when I was 21 years old. So, and a lot of that goes to Phil Collins and Def Leppard. But he always told me, he said, the older you get, you got to work harder. And I believe that. And guys like Phil Collins, even Joe Elliott's 61 years old. The guy's fucking singing better than he ever has. And, it's just one of those things, man. You got to put the work in no matter what age. So, there you go. So Roth, I think he was really, if this tour would have kept going, I think by this time he would have been in top form.
Okay. And the closer, Steve, any last words for the kids?
For the kids, wow. Oh, kids, that's right. Now you're really making me feel old. All I can tell you is,
you're vintage. You're not old. You're vintage.
That's right. Oh, I love you. That $20 is in the mail. The message: Tokyo Motor Fest, the new record Lions. To me, this is the greatest music that I've ever made in my life as a producer, a writer, guitar player, singer, all the above. Ted, Chuck, and Greg as well. This record is the melodic hard rock record of the year. It's the melodic rock guitar record of the year. Some of my best guitar work. I cannot wait for everybody to hear it. And the message of Lions is the most important thing. I wrote the song Lions a year ago. We have the great Dennis DeYoung playing on it, plays a great, incredible keyboard solo. But the message of it couldn't be more poignant than it is now, in the way how fucked up the world is, how messed up the world is, especially our country. We need people to be lions. Stop being sheep. Be your own person. Be a young blood. Follow your dreams. Make things happen. If you want things to change, you have to make it happen. You can't sit around. Don't be an armchair quarterback. Get out there and make it happen. And most of all, everybody, stay positive, because that's the ultimate message of Steve Brown. Since I was a kid, I wrote songs about positivity, dreams, you're only young once. That's the way I live my life. You live it that way, and you'll have a better life for yourself and for your family, and that's what it's all about. So Tokyo Motor Fist Lions, that's what it's all about.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. Hope to see you on the next Jericho cruise, or Long Island or New York, wherever you are. Thanks for your time, Steve.
Yeah, man.
Keep up the greatness.
Thank you, Darren. Thanks for all your support.
Paltrocast.